The house beside the church. I've lived in a lot of places. Apartments with broken heaters, motel rooms that smelled like Windex and stale sin, a trailer out past Lincoln where I slept with a steak knife under my pillow and a broomstick wedged through the window locks. But 7831, Sherwood Boulevard, that one still lives in my dreams. Not in the waking scream kind of way. No, worse than that. In the quiet kind. The ones where you wake up missing it. Where you feel the air from that crooked hallway on your skin. Where you can still hear your child's voice calling you from a room you know was empty. We pulled up in my dented Ford Aerostar on a cold Saturday morning, fog hugging the road like it had teeth. The house looked tired, like something halfway through dying. 2 tall palm trees stood like old soldiers in the yard, one of them shedding dead fronds like it had given up. The porch creaked as we stepped onto it, and a family of ants scurried away from an empty soda can sitting near the steps. Emily, my 10-year-old, looked at the place and said, "It's bigger than the pictures." Katie, 7, just hugged her doll tighter and stared at the upper window. Jack, my youngest at 4, sucked his thumb and pointed at the alley beside the house. The realtor was long gone by then. She'd left the key in the mailbox with a little note. "Best of luck. Call if you need anything." But of course, her number was disconnected by the end of the month. The inside of the house smelled like bleach and mothballs. Not terrible, but not lived in either. It had that vacant smell, like memories had been scrubbed out of the walls. I walked from room to room while the kids explored. The living room was long and narrow, with dark wood paneling and a built-in bookcase full of warped Reader's Digests and a 1981 Sears catalog. The carpet was shag, worn flat in the center. One of the ceiling tiles near the fan sagged slightly, yellow-stained from some long-ago leak. The kitchen had avocado green cabinets and a wobbly ceiling fan that clicked when you turned it on. There was a blackened patch under the sink where mold had been bleached away, but you could still smell it if you knelt down. The downstairs bedroom, mine, had one cracked window pane and a radiator that coughed when I tried to turn it on. There was a dead moth in the ceiling light fixture. I remember that clearly. It looked like it had been there a long, long time. Upstairs, the hallway felt off. It wasn't the creaking floorboards or the peeling wallpaper. It was the shape of it. Too narrow, almost like it was pressing in. The corners of the ceiling sloped in strange ways, like the angles had been measured by someone who'd never lived in a house before. Emily claimed the biggest room at the end of the hall. She'd already started dragging in her backpack when I turned to check on the others. Katie was standing in the doorway of the middle room, not moving, just staring. "What's wrong, honey?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. Then she whispered, "It doesn't like me." I didn't ask what she meant. Not yet. Instead, I tried to shake off the chill and told myself we were just tired. Moving is hard on kids. New towns are harder. And Los Molinos? It felt like the kind of place where even the air moved slower. The church bell next door chimed the hour as I unloaded the last box. By 6 p.m., the sun had already vanished behind a curtain of gray, and the whole street was bathed in amber shadows. The palm trees looked like scarecrows under the streetlight. I made grilled cheese for dinner. The kids were quiet. Not unhappy, just still. Even Jack barely picked at his sandwich. After they went to bed, I stayed up a while, drinking coffee at the kitchen table, listening to the house breathe. That's when I saw him. Through the cracked slats of the window blinds, out past the mailbox, a man stood on the sidewalk, just watching. Dirty gray hair that looked as if it hadn't been brushed in months. A long, unkempt gray beard. Thick, square glasses that made his eyes uncomfortably large. Camouflage pants and a leaf-patterned jacket like he'd tried to spray paint nature onto himself. He was muttering to himself, one hand tapping his thigh rhythmically. Then he jerked his head toward the alley behind the house. I stepped outside onto the porch, ready to say something, but he turned first, walked off toward the street corner, mumbling something about the tower beneath the church, the shadows that don't belong to God. Then he looked back towards the house. The one older than the trees, the one that lives below owns this dirt. And he walked around the corner. I asked around later and found out who he was. His name was Marion Mapes. People said he lived in a trailer over off Josephine Street by the alley. They said he camouflaged everything he owned with silhouettes of leaves, that he spray painted over the leaves with black, green, and brown paint. Some people said he was a conspiracy nut. Others just said he was crazy. But nobody ever bothered him. And nobody ever laughed when he said something weird. That night, I slept with the light on in the hallway, not because I was scared. I told myself it was for the kids. But around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of tiny footsteps. I got up quietly and opened my bedroom door. Jack was standing in the middle of the upstairs hallway, facing the attic. His hand was on the pull string, and when I asked him what he was doing, he turned and said in a flat voice I've never heard before, "The man up there says it's time." I didn't sleep much after I found Jack in the hallway. I sat on the edge of my bed until dawn, sipping cold coffee and watching the hallway through the cracked door. I kept telling myself it was just sleepwalking. Kids do it, especially after a move. Stress, nerves, disrupted routines. But that voice wasn't his. It didn't belong in a 4-year-old's throat. It sounded flattened, like someone had pressed Jack's words through a screen. By morning, he had no memory of it. Just blinked at me with big brown eyes and asked for cartoons like nothing happened. I spent most of that day unpacking, trying to pretend we were normal, trying to beat the feeling that the walls were leaning in. The house felt darker during the day than it did at night. I opened every blind, every curtain, and still, shadows clung to the corners like wet leaves. The light never filled the rooms completely. It sort of pooled in patches like it was being filtered. And the upstairs hallway? It was always colder than the rest of the house. Always. There was a spot at the top of the stairs where the temperature dropped by at least 10 degrees. I tried to explain it to myself. Airflow, poor insulation. But none of that accounted for how still it was. No draft, no hum, just stillness. After lunch, I decided to get a better sense of the upstairs. There were 3 bedrooms, a linen closet, a half bath, and that damned attic hatch in the hallway ceiling. The hatch had no ladder, no handle, just an old string hanging down like a noose. I tried pulling it. It barely budged. The wood groaned, and I could hear dust shifting up there, but the hatch refused to open. I let go. My hands were shaking. Katie's room was the middle one. The one she stood in on the first day. The one she said didn't like her. It was small, maybe 10 by 10, with a single narrow window overlooking the alley. The window had a cracked frame and warped glass that distorted the outside view, like looking through old water. The wallpaper was peeling in long vertical strips. Beneath it, the plaster had deep grooves, long claw-like scratches that had been painted over a dozen times. I noticed something else. There were no corners. Not really. The room's angles were subtly rounded, warped. As if someone had taken a square and softened it, like a dollhouse that had been left out in the sun too long. You couldn't hang a picture frame straight in there if you tried. I did. It tilted every time. Katie was sitting in the middle of the room on the floor, legs crossed, staring at her doll. "What's her name again?" I asked, trying to make light conversation. Katie didn't look up. She doesn't know. She said names are how they find you. I didn't answer. I just slowly backed out of the room and closed the door. Emily had settled into the back bedroom, She was the strongest of the three. Always had been. The little adult of the family. When I knocked, she was organizing her books on a shelf she'd built out of crates. "Everything okay?" I asked. She nodded, then hesitated. "Katie's been saying weird stuff. She's just adjusting." "No, Mom. She said the closet sings to her. Said it wants her to crawl inside and be part of the house." I blinked. "Did she really say that?" "Yeah, and Jack keeps drawing this guy." She handed me a piece of paper. Crayon scribbles, rough, jagged. It showed a tall figure in black, standing above the house. No eyes, no mouth. Just a smooth face with a long slit where the nose should be. His arms were too long, hands dragging near his feet. "What's that supposed to be?" I asked, trying to mask my concern. Emily shrugged. "He said it's the attic man." That night, I tried to keep things normal. Spaghetti dinner, music playing low from the little kitchen radio, dishes done before bedtime. But something had shifted. Every sound felt closer. The pipes groaned deeper. The floors gave under my weight like the house was tired of holding itself up. Around 11 p.m., I passed through the hallway and saw the pull string to the attic swinging. Just lightly, back and forth. No draft, no windows open, no reason. I touched it. It was cold, colder than the air around it. At 2:15 a.m., I was jolted awake by laughter. Children's laughter. I bolted upright, thinking the kids had gotten up, but the house was dark. Quiet. I crept up the stairs and opened each door. Emily, asleep. Katie, curled up in a ball, her doll clutched to her chest. Jack, under his covers. Then I heard it again. Not laughter this time, whispering, coming from the air vent. I crouched down, pressed my ear to it. The words were muffled, but I could make out one sentence, repeated in a child's voice. "No corners, no corners, no corners." I backed away, heart thudding, throat dry. That was when I noticed something on the floor beside Jack's bed. A crayon, red, rolled just beneath the edge of the sheet. I picked it up. There was a drawing on the wall, hastily scribbled on the white paint just above the baseboard. It was the same figure, the tall man with no face. Only this time he wasn't standing above the house. He was standing inside it. I made the kids pancakes the next morning, extra butter, too much syrup. I thought maybe if I just did normal things, mom things, it would reset the house, trick it into being a home again. Emily barely touched hers. Katie just stirred the syrup with her fork, watching it swirl like she was trying to read it. Jack ate his quietly, then went back to the hallway with his crayons. No one asked to go outside. No one mentioned school. It was like the house had already wrapped around us, tightening slowly. Around noon, I walked next door to the Los Molinos United Methodist Church. I hadn't planned to. I just found myself standing on the cracked walkway, staring at the faded white siding and tall, narrow windows. It smelled like old paint and dust. Inside, it was cold and quiet. The pews creaked when I stepped in. A man emerged from behind the pulpit, mid-60s, graying at the temples, dark circles under his eyes. "Can I help you?" he asked, with a voice that was soft but tight, like he was always bracing for bad news. I introduced myself, told him we'd moved in next door. He paused just a second too long. "Ah, 7831, he said finally. "Yes, I remember." "You know the house?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "I've been the pastor here nearly 30 years, seen a few tenants come and go." I waited. He didn't say more. "What happened there?" I finally asked. He looked toward the stained glass windows like he expected them to answer for him. "I don't know exactly, but I do know the church bell started ringing at night when that place stood empty. For years. I swallowed. By itself? No one ever found the rope pulled, but it rang. He studied me. Don't stay if the house doesn't let you rest. That's all I'll say. When I got back, Katie was upstairs. Her door was closed. I knocked, then opened it. She was standing on her bed, both hands pressed to the air vent on the wall. "Katie?" I said. She didn't move. I stepped closer and gently touched her shoulder. She jumped, wide-eyed. "What are you doing?" "I was listening." "To what?" She looked at the vent again. "They talk when the lights are off." I examined the vent. It looked normal. Metal slats, dusty edges, nothing inside. But when I leaned in close, I could feel something. Not air, not sound. Vibration. Like the vent was part of something larger. Like there was a long tunnel behind the wall, pulsing with something you couldn't hear unless your bones were touching it. Katie crawled off the bed. "They say Jack's not supposed to be here," she whispered. I grabbed her shoulders. "Katie, don't say things like that." She blinked. It wasn't me. That night I couldn't sleep. The silence upstairs was thicker than usual, clinging, sticky, like fog that somehow got inside your skin. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling until almost midnight. Then I heard it. A voice. Low, guttural, coming from the vent in my bedroom wall. I froze. It wasn't words at first, just breathing. Then faint syllables began forming behind the metal grill. "He is here, beneath." I sat up and flicked on the lamp. The sound stopped instantly. Not faded. Stopped. Like it had seen me. I leaned closer to the vent, slowly, barely daring to breathe. The metal was cold. I pressed my ear to it. Nothing. Then, all at once, "Mom!" Katie's scream tore through the house like glass shattering. I bolted up the stairs 2 at a time, heart pounding. Her door was open. She was standing on the bed again, pointing at the closet. "There's someone in there!" I ran over, yanked the door open. Nothing. Just clothes. A few boxes. Darkness. But the air was wrong. Heavy. Pressurized. Like the closet was bigger than it should have been. Like it was deeper. Katie climbed down and clung to my arm. I started to shut the door. Then I heard it. A voice from deep inside the closet. Not a whisper this time. A word. "Stay." Just that. Simple. Authoritative. Calm. Katie started crying. Not loud, just silent sobs, her face buried in my shirt. I shut the door and locked it with a chair under the handle. That night, I slept on the floor outside her room. I left the hallway light on again. At 3:12 a.m., I woke up to a sound, a faint clicking coming from the hallway vent. I opened my eyes and looked toward it. Inside, I saw fingers, pale, gray, twitching, gripping the slats from behind. And then, they vanished. I started dreaming in static. Not images, not sounds. Just the thick, choking presence of nothing. The kind of dream where you know something is watching you from the dark, but you're not allowed to wake up until it decides it's done. The dreams began the same night I heard the word, "stay," come from Katie's closet. And every morning since, I woke up more exhausted than when I went to sleep. On Wednesday, I decided to call a contractor. Not to fix anything. I just wanted someone else in the house. Another pair of eyes. A second opinion. A witness. He didn't show. Didn't call. Didn't reschedule. Later that week, I called the number again. Disconnected. I spent the day cleaning out the bathroom upstairs. It was the last room I hadn't fully scrubbed. The mirror above the sink was fogged, permanently it seemed. I sprayed it with Windex. Nothing. Scrubbed. Still nothing. I leaned in closer and noticed something strange. The fog wasn't on the outside of the mirror. It was within the glass. A pale haze moving like it was breathing, just beneath the surface. Slow, circular motion, the kind you see in still water after something heavy sinks. And in that haze, for the briefest second, I saw a face. Not mine. Smiling. Not with teeth, but with a mouth that stretched. I backed away so fast I knocked the toilet brush over and slammed the bathroom door behind me. The moment I shut it, I heard something behind the wall. Scratching. Long, slow, deliberate. From inside the wall between the bathroom and the hallway, the exact place where the attic access was overhead. I knew I had to open it. Eventually. The attic, the hatch, the thing Jack kept standing under. I got the stepladder from the garage and climbed it carefully, the old wood creaking under my weight. The pull string dangled just inches from my face. I reached up, grabbed it, and pulled. It resisted at first, then groaned as it opened. The wooden stairs unfolded downward like bones popping from a socket. A thick cloud of dust spilled into the hallway. It smelled like dried rot and mothballs soaked in vinegar. I stood at the base for a long time before I climbed. Each step popped like a knuckle. The wood felt damp, soft under my heels. When I reached the top, I found myself in a narrow triangular room, rafters above, fiberglass insulation clinging to the beams like cobwebs, but it wasn't empty. No, there were dolls, a dozen or more, all hanging from twine strung between the beams, each one tied at the neck, spinning slowly in the air. Some were missing arms. Others had their eyes carved out or painted black. Beneath them, a small circle of white powder, salt maybe, broken in places, as if something had stepped through it. And near the far wall, propped against the insulation, a child's drawing. Crayons on paper. Same spiral pattern I'd seen before. In the center, a black figure crouching, a faceless thing with long limbs and fingers like branches. It was inside a box. No, beneath the floor. That night, Jack disappeared. I found his bed empty just after 2 a.m. I called his name, ran room to room, screaming until my voice broke. Then I heard a noise in the laundry room downstairs. The cupboard door beneath the water heater creaked open slowly. I ran in and dropped to my knees. A square hole had been cut into the floor behind the dryer. A wooden crawl space. Cold air drifted up from it. I reached in. Jack was sitting at the bottom of the crawl space, knees to his chest, staring straight ahead. "Jack," I gasped. "What are you doing?" He didn't move. "It wants to show me something," he said softly. "It's under the dirt." I pulled him out and held him so tight he couldn't breathe. He didn't resist, just whispered, "It says you'll see it soon too." I didn't sleep after that. Neither did Emily. She sat on the edge of her bed, flashlight gripped in both hands, staring at the hallway. "I heard it last night," she said. "Outside my door." "What did you hear?" She didn't blink. It wasn't walking, it was dragging. It was a Thursday morning when I knew the house had started listening. I don't mean metaphorically. I don't mean it felt creepy, or off, or wrong. I mean it heard me, understood me, and let me know it could answer back. It began when I whispered to myself in the kitchen. Just a soft mutter, something no louder than a thought pushed through clenched teeth. I don't know how much more of this I can take. And from the ceiling vent above the stove, something replied. It mimicked my voice. Low, delayed, crooked. I just don't know how much more I can take. I stood frozen, coffee mug halfway to my lips. Then it whispered again. Different voice this time. Male. Breathy. Confident. It's already inside them. I dropped the mug. It shattered across the tile. That afternoon, I sat the kids down. I didn't know what I was going to say, just that something had to be said. "Have any of you," I began, but my voice caught. Emily looked up. "You don't have to pretend it's okay, Mom." I blinked. She stared straight at me, calm, older than her 10 years. "I hear it too," she said. "Every night now. It calls Katie by name." Katie didn't look up from her doll. "She calls back," Emily added. "In her sleep." Katie raised her head, then spoke in a voice too steady for a 7-year-old. "The flesh is clay, the house is the wheel, and we are shaped in its mouth." The words hit like ice water. "Katie," I whispered, kneeling in front of her. "Where did you hear that?" She blinked. "It's in the cracks." "What cracks?" She pointed toward the walls. "All of them." That night, I searched the house, methodically, every vent, every closet, every panel. I found things, not proof, not quite, but evidence. Behind the bathroom mirror was a shallow cavity, and inside it, tucked between the studs, I found something wrapped in yellowed cloth. It was a page, torn from a hymnal, but the words had been rewritten in ink, sloppy, angry, sharp. "He shall rise not from the tomb, but from the boards beneath. He shall wear no eyes, for he sees through the wood. He shall make the mouth of the house his own." No name, no author, just those 3 lines and a crude charcoal drawing of a headless child, arms outstretched like a scarecrow. Around 3 a.m., I was jolted awake by a sound I'd come to dread. Breathing. It came from the hallway vent. I crawled to the edge of the bed and leaned close. It was slow at first. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. Then it changed. It said my name. "Marlene." Soft. Gentle. Like a lover's voice behind the wall. "Marlene, why did you bring them here?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just backed away and shut my bedroom door like that would help. Like a hollow slab of plywood could hold it back. But as I reached for the hallway light, it flickered, then cut out. The house went dark. Not just night dark. Blind dark. No streetlights. No moon through the window. Just pitch. I heard the attic stairs unfold above me, one slow hinge at a time. Creak. Then a long dragging noise across the boards overhead. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Then Katie's door creaked open. She stepped out into the hallway and said, "He's almost ready." Emily appeared behind me like a ghost, flashlight in hand. She clicked it on and pointed it at her sister. Katie blinked against the light, confused. "What?" she asked. "Why are you looking at me like that?" That morning, I found new drawings taped to the wall above Jack's bed. He said he didn't put them there. They were done in red crayon, shaky, angry. One showed our family standing in the front yard, except one of us had no face. And the attic window above us showed a second Jack, smiling. The thing about horror is that it's never loud at first. It doesn't arrive like thunder. It seeps into cracks, into routines, into your reflection when you're not expecting it. And when you finally try to fight back, when you pick up a hammer or start to pray, it's already inside the walls. That morning, I heard the attic door open on its own. I was brushing my teeth. Jack was on the toilet next to me humming quietly. And then, creak, from the hallway. I ran out, still holding the toothbrush, foamy paste dripping down my chin. The ladder was down, the string still swaying, but no one had pulled it. Emily came out of her room next. "Was that you?" I shook my head. "Stay with Jack," I said. I'm going up. I climbed with the flashlight clenched between my teeth. The air grew heavier with every step. The attic hadn't changed much. Same hanging dolls, same bitter smell of mothballs and rotting wood. But this time I noticed something new. There were carvings on the beams. Dozens of them. Symbols that looked like twisted letters, almost legible, but not quite. They spiraled into each other, connected by lines that felt like veins or roots. In the back corner, beneath a rotted wool blanket, I found a hatch. It was a square board nailed into the floor, hidden under loose insulation and dust. I pried it up with the claw of a hammer. Beneath it, a hollow space. And in that space, a burlap sack. I pulled it out. It was wet. Not damp, wet, like it had just come out of a river. It reeked of mold and something worse. Copper, salt, decay. I untied the knot. Inside were bones. Small. Animal, maybe. Maybe not. Mixed in with the bones were scraps of yellow cloth, baby clothes maybe, and beneath that, a smooth object, a child's tooth, still pink at the root. I replaced the sack and shut the hatch, nailed it back down with shaking hands. When I turned to leave, I saw something scratched into the attic wall in the narrow light. He crawls. He carries the house with him. He bends the air. I descended without speaking. My legs trembled so badly I nearly fell on the last rung. Emily waited at the bottom with Jack. "Where's Katie?" I asked. They both shrugged. I found her outside in the alley, standing barefoot in her pajamas, staring at the church next door. "The bell's not ringing anymore," she said softly. "He's almost done hiding." That night, Jack had a seizure. He wasn't epileptic. No medical history. No trauma. He just stiffened at dinner, fork in hand, body rigid, then began to shake. We rushed him to the couch. It lasted less than 20 seconds. When it ended, he blinked up at us and whispered, "He's under the house." I didn't sleep. I stayed up with Emily, watching the vent system, flashlight in hand. Around 3 a.m. we heard it, knocking, from beneath the floorboards, first soft, then harder, like fists or hooves, striking wood in a pattern. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 more. I followed the sound to the laundry room where the crawlspace hatch was. It shook, just once, then stopped. Emily stood behind me. "It's like it's waiting to be let in," she said. The next day, I pulled up the boards beneath the dryer again. Same crawl space, same musty air. But something had changed. There were scratches on the inside beam, freshly carved. And this time, the scratches made words. She opened the door. "He is closer now. You belong here." I shut the hatch, nailed it closed. Then I checked on Jack. He was drawing again. Red crayon, fast, intense. I looked over his shoulder. This time, it wasn't the house. It was a tunnel, leading downward, and at the very bottom was our family, lying still, with the words written across the top in childish, uneven letters. "Underneath is home." When I called Pastor Griggs the next morning, he answered like he already knew who it was. I hadn't even said my name before he said, "You waited too long, didn't you?" I didn't deny it. I didn't have to. I just told him everything. Not all the details, but enough. The attic, the drawings, the voices, the thing that said my name through the vents. There was a long pause. Then he sighed. "I'll come by this evening." When he arrived just after 6 p.m., the air outside had gone still. The wind had stopped. Even the palm trees had frozen in place like something was holding the whole block's breath. He wore his collar, brought a small satchel, and walked with a limp I hadn't noticed at the church. The moment he stepped over the threshold, the hallway light dimmed. He noticed. "This house," he murmured, "was always a little too proud of itself." He began in the living room with a small prayer, sprinkling holy water across the carpet. The droplets hit the air like they'd landed on a skillet, hissing. He furrowed his brow, but continued. Jack sat curled on the couch, watching him with wide eyes. Katie was in the kitchen, staring into the vent above the stove again, whispering something I couldn't hear. Emily followed the pastor from room to room, flashlight in hand, like his silent escort. When he reached the upstairs hallway, he stopped beneath the attic hatch and didn't move. He stood there staring at the ceiling, lips pressed into a hard, pale line. Then he pulled out a tiny vial of oil and smeared a cross on the trim. Almost instantly we heard it. Laughter, from the vent, childlike, giddy, too many voices all layered into one. And then... She called the wrong name. Griggs paled. "That wasn't yours," he said to me. I nodded. No, it wasn't. He entered Katie's room next. She sat in the middle of the bed, crayon in hand, scribbling on the wall itself. Not paper, not coloring books, the wallpaper. He stepped closer and saw what she was drawing. It was a face, but not a human one. Too long, too smooth. No mouth, no eyes. It was shaped like a skull stretched over a balloon, taut. Vein-like lines spiraling from the edges like roots into the wall. Katie turned to look at him, face blank, eyes glassy. And she spoke in a voice that wasn't hers. "You can bless the walls, but not the dirt." Griggs staggered backward. I ran to Katie, pulled her off the bed. Her skin was hot. Too hot. Her eyes rolled back for a second, then she vomited a thick stream of black liquid all over my arms and the floor. It smelled like burnt oil and sulfur. She collapsed in my arms, limp but breathing. Pastor Griggs whispered a final prayer under his breath, then snapped his satchel shut. "I can't help you," he said, voice shaking. This isn't a haunting. This is a claim." He left without another word, and as the door shut behind him, every light in the house went out. The house held its breath for almost a minute. Then, from the vent in the hallway, we heard it again. My name. Marlene. Closer this time. Not whispered. Spoken. I pressed my hand to the metal slats and screamed, "What do you want from me?" There was a pause. Then, "You brought them. Now you feed them." Katie didn't wake for hours. When she did, she was cold and confused. There were scratches on her neck. 3 narrow, symmetrical lines down each side. I hadn't put her in the attic. I hadn't left her alone. But when I checked her hands, they were dusted with fiberglass insulation. Emily came to me later, holding one of Jack's drawings. "I think this is what it wants us to see," she said. It was a cross-section. A crude one, but clear. The house, the attic, the crawl space, and beneath it all, a hollow void. Inside that void was something curled in the fetal position, covered in nails, eyes sewn shut, and beneath it, in red crayon letters, "Wake him." I woke just before 3 a.m. to someone calling my name. Not loud, not urgent, just soft, from far away. Almost like it came through the wall. "Mom." I sat up, blinked. My clock read 2:58. "Mom, come here." It was Jack's voice, or it sounded like Jack, but it wasn't coming from his room. It was coming from outside. I stepped into the hallway, heart hammering. Katie and Emily's doors were shut. The vent above the bathroom clicked softly in the stillness. I crept down the stairs and toward the back door. The security light over the alley was flickering, casting flashes over the dirt and fence. "Mom," I need you. It came again, from the alley, behind the house. I unlocked the back door and stepped onto the porch. Cold air wrapped around me like a wet sheet. The wind had returned, slow, with that same sour, dusty smell of insulation and mildew. The alley was empty, dead quiet, except there were bare footprints in the dirt, leading toward the fence line. Small, child-sized. I followed them. The alley ran between our property and the church's back lot. Weeds lined the fences. A tipped-over garbage can lay on its side, spilling cardboard and crushed soda cans into the shadows. "Mom!" The voice came again, this time from behind me. I turned fast. No one there. But when I looked up, instinctively, not knowing why, I saw it. In the attic window, just above the porch. A silhouette. Tall. Too tall. Its head almost brushed the top of the glass. Its arms hung too low, like they had no joints. Just long, slow tendrils pressed to the inside of the glass. It was watching me. No, not watching. Staring. I backed away slowly. My feet sank into the soft dirt of the alley. The attic curtain fluttered slightly, though no window was open. Then the figure stepped back into the dark and disappeared. I ran inside, slamming the door behind me. When I checked Jack's room, he was asleep, snoring softly, one arm tucked under his pillow, crayon drawings still scattered across the floor. Emily sat on the hallway floor outside Katie's door, knees to her chest, holding her flashlight. "I didn't hear anything," she said. "But I knew you were gone." "How?" She blinked at me. "Because he was watching me through the vent." I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I stayed in the living room, knees pulled to my chest on the couch, staring at the front door like it might burst open. The vent in the corner of the room pulsed every few minutes, puffs of air that were too warm, like something was breathing through it. And I noticed something else. The dolls in the attic? I could hear them now. Tapping. Very faint. Like their legs swung softly, brushing wood as they turned. At dawn, Katie came downstairs. She hadn't spoken a word since the black vomit 2 nights ago, but now she sat at the table and began tearing strips from a dish towel, one after another, her face blank. I asked her what she was doing. She didn't look at me, just whispered, "He's going to use these to blind the bad ones." I crouched beside her. "What bad ones?" She finally turned to me. "The ones still trying to leave." That evening, Emily showed me something else. A journal entry. One I didn't write. It had been scribbled in the back of my old address book, something I hadn't touched since we moved in. The handwriting wasn't mine. It looked like a child's. She opens the door. She feeds him small things first. The voices are bait. The girl is the key. The boy is the mouth. The mother is the vessel. Later that night, Jack told me he had a new friend. I was spooning soup into his bowl when he said it. Just casual, like he was talking about a TV show. "He lives under the stairs now," Jack said. "He says I don't have to listen to you anymore. He says you lied about the fire." I stopped mid-stir. "There wasn't a fire, Jack." He smiled. "That's what the old mom said too."
To be continued.
Thank you for stepping into the shadows with us. If you enjoyed this tale, subscribe to Sinister Phantom Tales and make sure to like and share this story with your bravest friends. New hauntings emerge every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so stay close. The next tale may be darker than the last. Every story you hear is original, born from the blood-soaked soil of Tehama County, the cursed woods of Lassen National Forest, and the ancient secrets beneath Mount Shasta. These are not just stories. These are sinister phantom tales, Sleep tight.